Welcome to the Capitalist Sage podcast. We're here to bring you advice and tips from seasoned pros and experts and help you improve your business. I'm Karl Barham with Transworld Business Advisors, and my co-host is Rico Figliolini with Mighty Rockets Digital Marketing and the publisher of our local and favorite Peet Corner magazine. Hey Rico, how you doing?
Hey Karl, good. Thanks. Been a beautiful day after all that rain.
It is. We are here in fall, which is going to lead to a fun topic today. We're going to talk about local brewer businesses here in Peet Corners and surrounding areas. And we're really honored to have Stephen Peet, CEO of Kettlerock Brewery, as well as Preston Smelt with Anderby Brewery, to share a little bit about their experience. But first, why don't you introduce our sponsors today, Rico?
Sure. Peet Corners Magazine is the sponsor of this show, along with the family of podcasts that we do, including Prime Lunchtime with City Manager and Peet Corners Life. We're working on our next issue right now. Actually, it goes to the press late next week, and you guys will be getting it the first week of October. It's going to be a good, full-packed issue. So I'm all excited to get it out and off my hands. So it'll be in the mailbox, hopefully sometime the week after next.
Excellent. That sounds great. Well, I'm going to reintroduce my guests. The first is Stephen Peet. He's the CEO of Kettlerock Brewery, a local brewery business right here in Peet Corner. And he's joined by Preston Smelt of Anderby Brewery, located in the Atlanta Tech Park area of Peet Corner. Why don't we start off by Stephen, you introducing yourself a little bit, and then we'll have Preston give a quick bio and introduction.
So I've been in Peet Corners here for a little over 30 years now and been involved in the community. The entire family has been involved in the community, and the entire family is involved in Kettlerock Brewing. So I'm not sure what all else you need to know other than come by and have a beer.
Appreciate that. Preston?
Yeah, so my name is Preston Smelt, and I'm president and head brewer here at Anderby Brewing. And we've been open since the end of July of 2019. So we got open just before everything went to hell. We've been here just over 2 years, getting ready to actually hold our official second birthday party here next month. So we're going to be excited to get a lot of new stuff out for that, and nice big outdoor area for everybody to come enjoy this nice fall weather we're finally getting.
Yeah, I'm excited for this season and getting out to visit both locations. But let's talk a little bit, start by talking about, why brewery industry, and we've seen a whole lot of new activity and businesses in this. What made you, and if I could start with Preston, get into brewery? How did you get into it? What made you think about opening up Anderby?
So, all of our stories, I think, we're past the 7,000 brewery mark in the United States. A lot of us have a very similar story. Most of us started home brewing, as did I. My wife bought me a Groupon to Brewmaster's Warehouse. It was an old place in Marietta that's, I think, closed now. That was doing learned a homebrew class. This was 7-8 years ago. Loved it. Fell immediately. Bought everything you needed to brew out of the kitchen while I was there, and then it just quickly expanded. It went from just little 5-gallon batches on a stovetop to 15-gallon batches on a custom rig that I built in my backyard. And then that grew into a 1-barrel system in my garage, which then, 2 years ago grew into a 10-barrel system here at Anderby Brewing. So it escalated pretty quickly over 7 years. And during that time, I also went and studied with places like the Siebel Institute out of Chicago, which is one of the country's leading brewing schools for professional side, to kind of hone everything in, knowing this is what we wanted to do at some point in time. Got it done the summer right before we opened, actually. Then decided to open a brewery. SB 85 passed, I don't know, what was that, 2017-ish, if I remember correctly, my date.
Yes.
Yeah, so that allowed this taproom model that you're seeing us Kettlerock Social Thoughts Cultivation, all the new breweries that are opening up are all following this taproom model. It allowed that to actually happen in the state of Georgia. Prior to that, you could only do tours, and you had to be relying on distribution. You couldn't just open a neighborhood tap room and survive. But as soon as SB 85 passed, Peachtree Corners was one of the first kind of Northeast perimeter cities to adjust their local laws to allow for this to happen, which is a necessary step. I live in Dunwoody. I really wanted to put this in Dunwoody. Dunwoody, not that much foresight. So Dunwoody lost out on this opportunity. So we found a great place here in Peachtree Corners with a great landlord and made it happen. City's been phenomenal to work with, and that's kind of how we ended up here.
How about you? Stephen, your experience and why you got into it, and you're doing it as a family endeavor, so that brings an extra interesting aspect to this.
Absolutely. So it's my wife and I, Diana and I, are the owners, and all 4 kids are involved in the brewery. Everyone has a full-time job outside of this. I'm the only full-time person that's here at the brewery right now. Everybody's just helping out in the different areas. Rico, you've mentioned your cat may go by, and I saw it.
Yes, he did. Cameo.
So my 2 oldest boys have been homebrewing for 10 years now, and we are the founding members of the PC Mashers Homebrew Club here in Peachtree Corners, which, if you'd like to be involved in that, check out pcmashers.com. We meet the 3rd Wednesday of every month. Most homebrew clubs are bottle shares, and ours is a bottle share as well. However, we have a style that we brew to each month, and then we compare our beers to each other's. And what that allows us to do is to help each other brew better beer. And a testament to that is that we entered the Swanee Homebrew Fest a couple of years ago, and Sterling had not been wanting to enter beers in contests. I don't know why. He grumbles about that, but he did, and he won 2nd place with what is now our Float Trip IPA. But the Homebrew Club was 1st place in that competition because enough of us had gotten better, enough of us had entered. There's only about 10 to 14 of us in the club, and enough of us entered and medaled. So that's a testament to us all getting better.
Sure.
The local growler store, Peachtree Growler, had changed hands and had been talking about opening a brewery or brew pub in Peachtree Corners. And since that changed hands and didn't happen, we kind of took that up and decided as a family we could make this work. And Sterling is still the head brewer, started at and still is. My daughter Krista is actually one of the assistant brewers, and my 2nd oldest, which is Taylor, who was doing home brewing with Sterling, he's one of the assistant brewers as well. And then Devin does marketing, and everybody does a little bit of everything, as you might guess, when you're a small business like this.
It's interesting because this business you have to have passion for this business, right?
Absolutely.
Because it's trial and error on almost every batch you do.
You're right.
Right? So mistakes happen. I know I was discussing with Preston last week when I visited with him at Anderby's, just like my father when he made wine at home, because he was a winemaker at home for himself. 3 whiskey barrels was enough for the season, he felt. He shared a lot of it with friends and family around Brooklyn.
Of course.
But it's trial and error. But that's one season of making grapes. You guys are constantly making different brews, adding different things to
Yes.
flavors and stuff. So how do you learn to do that? I mean, I know how Preston learned to do that, obviously, getting formal education to a degree. But still, right, Preston? I mean, you're still doing experimenting. That's the best part of this, isn't it? Being able to do that.
Oh, most definitely. Yeah. And I mean, there's a lot of ways to learn, right? And Dana, my assistant brewer, she's a grad student getting her master's in microbiology, which is a great asset to have in a field that is really, it's part chemistry, part cooking, kind of all, right? It's an art and a science. And so we do a lot of experimenting. We brew on average twice a week, every week. So you can imagine we go through a lot of beer, and out of all the beers we make, only 5 or 6 are staples, right? So everything's brew one time, move on, brew something different the next time. And so that allows you to iteratively learn. But then you also start to build connections within the brewing community, both in Georgia and in other states. And then you start to say, hey, I really like this beer from you. How did you do X, whatever it might be? It might be a fruit. How are you adding your fruits to your beers? There's a lot of ways you can fruit a beer. You can put them in on the hot side. You can put them in pre-fermentation. You can put them in post-fermentation. You don't have to use real fruit at all. You can just use artificial flavors if you want to, just for whatever you're trying to do, right? So there are a lot of ways to accomplish things, and trial and error is the best way for you to figure out what works for your system, for your palate, for your customers. What works for the drinkers here in Atlanta may not sit well with the drinkers in California. So you have to kind of balance what is your market, what is your demo preferring, and then make adjustments. And, the first thing you learn, and I'm sure Stephen and Sterling and the team at Kettlerock can attest to this, is as soon as you open your doors, you're no longer brewing for you. Your personal tastes don't matter anymore. You're brewing for the people who come into your doors, or in my case, are ordering us at restaurants or picking up cans at package stores. And so what I want from a beer 9 times out of 10 doesn't matter if that's not what the consumer is willing to pay for, right? And when you're a business, it's the biggest change from home brewing to being a commercial brewer is you're a business now. So your personal taste no longer matter if people are not willing to pay for it.
That's a really good point, and I'm going to throw out hard seltzers as a big example of that. Most brewers will look at a hard seltzer and say, "That's not beer. That's not beer." But Sam Adams, their major income is hard seltzers, which Sam Adams is a beer company, but that's their major income. That's most breweries, microbreweries will have a seltzer. It's just something you have to have because, as Preston says, that's what the market desires. That's what the people want.
Can I ask a question along that line? So everything is local. If you're from New York or Boston, there's going to be certain palates and tastes and what's popular. If you were to describe what's popular here in Georgia or even in Gwinnett County and in the surrounding areas, what would be popular in your opinion in this area? And specifically, both for each of you, what do you find to be some of the things that you do differently?
Wow, that's kind of a hard question, because I'm going to say that if you are in California, West Coast IPAs are the thing. I mean, that is the thing, a hoppy beer. In Atlanta, people like hoppy beers, but not to the same extent, I think, as in folks along the West Coast. So that's one example. Another would be, I think, the fruit sours and such like that. That's a little more of a Southern thing. It's certainly big breweries big microbreweries. I got to be careful with that. Are making sour beer, so clearly it's a thing everywhere. But I think it's a bigger thing when you're talking in the South and warmer climates.
Preston?
Yeah, and I would echo a lot of that. During the summer, the fruited sours were a very good seller for us. We personally have seen that taper off here over the last month or so. I know regionally or in the metro area, it's kind of tapered off a little bit, but the New England style IPAs, the big hazy ones, Those are ever popular, whether they're being made by us or importing from breweries from other states, right? So there are a lot of the hazy IPAs move very fast. The Atlanta beer community also has a pretty big, heavy stout following, right? So they love there's a big portion of the Atlanta beer drinkers that love that big, heavy,
Exactly.
sweet stout, right? Like a candy stout or flavored stout, things like of that nature. And those are not easy to do well, right? To balance the booziness of a 13% imperial stout with that thickness, with the sweetness and whatever flavors you're trying to introduce. And we've got a few here in town that do them well. And, there are a few heavily sought after breweries in the greater region, Florida, especially with some of the guys out of Florida that do that stuff pretty well, also being sought after. So that's where I kind of see the beer drinker being right now as we move into the fall. I definitely think the bigger, darker beers are going to turn on.
Right.
It's weird. I hear a lot of people ask for a lot of the classic styles, blondes, English milds, but it's weird because as a brewery, they don't sell as much. So people there's a vocal minority that wants these types of beers, but then when you have them, they don't move as quickly as the others. And beer does have a shelf life. So that's something that you have to kind of weigh. I also think some of the classic styles cannibalize each other in sales. So if you have too many at one time, none of them are really going to sell well. So you just got, like for us with 19 taps, we just kind of have to be careful how many of each style we have at any one point in time, because then everything will just cannibalize each other. And then some of it can go bad and we have to dump it. And that's not fun. So
the beers tend to be more seasonal, I think, than regional in a sense. I mean, the darker beers, the heavier beers, the barrel-aged beers, those tend to be in the winter months, more interested by the consumers. And obviously in the summertime, then you're looking for, as they call it, lawnmower beers, porch beers, poolside beers, things like that. So there's certainly a seasonal aspect to it as well.
I'm curious about the business side of this, the different revenue models. Can you describe some of the options you explored in your businesses and which ones you really found to be areas that you want to focus on?
Well, in our case, our business model right now is just the tap room, draft beer sales right here at Kettlerock, and also hosting events. We've already had a number of events. We have a number of events that are scheduled. That's kind of a big deal. We're going to be doing distribution, and that way we can have our beer available in the local restaurants and at the local stores and such like that. So obviously that's a future. The other business model, which is typical of microbreweries, is having some entertainment here, be it trivia or music. We've just started the music. The issue with that is licensing. You can't just say, oh, I want to have some music in the tap room and I'm going to turn on the radio. No, you have to have the right thing that's been licensed properly and paying for that with ASCAP and BMI. And when you have live entertainment, then you have to pay them directly to pay BMI and ASCAP directly so that the royalties go to the right people and all that sort of good stuff. So we've just started that. We've had 2 events, two of the same band and one of another, and we've got some others coming up, and others that have been interested in coming by and playing for us. So that's kind of our model at this moment. And like I say, we'll be getting into the distribution.
Preston, how about you guys?
Yeah, I mean, as a brewery, there's really 2 ways to make money, right? You drive people into your tap room or you distribute. We do both. We're trying to do both. We pick our location because of the dearth of offices that had lots of people working in them in 2019. So, our challenge from the taproom side is that, well, there aren't as many people working in Tech Park as there were 2 years ago. So that's been a weekday challenge, especially. And there's only so much you can do on the weekends. So, yeah, I mean, we do trivia. We have a very successful trivia night. It's probably one of our most consistent, best days of the week. We've been running it short of the shutdown period pretty much every Thursday night since we opened. So it's become a regular. We have 5, 6 regular teams that come and play every week with us. So it's a fun event here, which does help. The live music, we have the licensing now. We definitely have a band scheduled for our second birthday party in October. But it's a catch-22, and for the longest time I just refused to do it simply because what Stephen was talking about with that licensing, that is the best racket out there. They charge you based off how many people they physically think can fit in your building, whether or not you ever have that kind of foot traffic. Fire marshal codes may include your production facility as part of your occupancy number, even though you're not going to let people just hang out in your production facility. In our case, it's closed off. You physically can't go back there. So, including that in our occupancy numbers drives up our price point on things like live music licenses. And we've finally been able to negotiate with those guys to get something reasonable. But then, you have to pay a band. You have to make sure that whoever you hire to do live music fits the vibe of your establishment. My wife and I, Michelle, she manages all of our sales and marketing and does all of our social media. Like, our vibe is hard rock. I mean, we are hard rock fans from across multiple generations. So like, our typical station here is rock bar. Well, if all of a sudden we bring in some, blues guitarist, why I love blues guitar, that's not the vibe in the ambiance that we've created here. And so then it doesn't fit. And then our customers are confused by it. Like, how does this connect to Anderby? So we have to always, we're very careful that when we do bring in live music or consider artists, that we're staying true to who we are, the brand that we've established is Anderby Brewing, and not just, hey, some guy with a guitar showed up, we're just going to let him set up and play, which people do. They show up with a guitar and say, hey,
had one last week. Had one last week show up.
Yep.
I mean, there's a culture
with that, but
yeah.
Everyone's looking for a gig, right? Everyone's looking
Exactly.
to do this.
Exactly.
One side you have that, but then there's the open mic kind of vibe where folks are coming in and they're trying.
We tried comedy night, and it was fine, right? We've tried a lot of things, and I mean, this is a business podcast, right? So you have to look at ROI, right? If you make, I'm just going to throw out numbers. If you make $2,000 on a Friday, and remember, we're talking beer sales. Like, both Kettlerock and I, we only make money on beer sales,
right?
$6-7 a glass, right? So you're pouring a lot of beer to get to $2,000 in sales, and then all of a sudden, some band comes up and says, "Hey, 3 hours Friday night, $500." And you're like, well, you may be worth $500 because you're good, but am I going to increase my sales by at least $500?
Exactly.
Preferably more, because if the answer is no, then go away, right? Like, no, there's no point in doing it. And so every time we evaluate this, and this is what happened with comedy night, like, we closed our doors to the public, ticketed event, sold beer by the pint. And I think we actually lost money on the deal because I think we turned away more regular customers who didn't care about the comedy night, just wanted to come in and drink beer, than we would have gotten off ticket sales. So it's just, you have to be very careful in how you evaluate events.
Exactly.
And understand what the ROI is and what ROI you need, especially if you're going to be outlaying money to do it.
Oh, that's a very good point. And a lot of that comes with, you try some things, and there might be, what is it that your ideal clients would be willing to pay or could draw in more? And at the beginning, in an area when you bring anything new, it's feeling that out and trying it out and trying to get that established. And you could see a lot of businesses will struggle with that early on, but then they'll find their niche. You know, I remember
Yep.
a
Yep.
local restaurant that did blues, had a band that came on a Sunday night band that would play, and it had been doing it for 10 years. And I will tell you, it would absolutely be like people cannot get in the door on that night, but they had established that as a thing. They had a promoter that probably helped promote that, and it was their thing, and it drew enough extra people to obviously more than make the ROI on that. But of course, that probably didn't happen the first night they did it. They probably had to invest in it over a long period of time, build up a following, etc. So those are all some of the challenges that business owners have to go through. So that makes perfect
Yep.
sense. If I could broaden out a little bit, help me understand some of the trends you're seeing in brewery that you're intrigued by. Is there things that are happening new in the industry that you think, you know, it's getting you pretty excited?
I'll take this one first. I mean, there's the best thing about this industry is everybody's always trying to innovate. And so the argument now is who invented the hazy IPA, right? The New England style IPA. A couple of breweries try to claim credit for it. And then you hear people in Chicago saying, oh, no, we were making them around the same time, right? So everybody's always trying to innovate and find the next thing that hits at a macro level, right? Because that can put you on the map. Creature Comforts found Tropicalia and it blew up, and then they blew up because of Tropicalia blowing up, right? So
Right.
the best thing about this business is everybody is always trying different stuff. Again, I mean, we've brewed 60 different beers this year, just this year, right? That doesn't even include last year or the little bit in 19. So, you know, we're always trying things and saying, hey, what worked, what didn't, what flavor combinations worked, what flavor combinations didn't, right? We have hundreds of grain varietals at our disposal. We have hundreds of hop varietals at our disposal. We have hundreds of yeast varietals at our disposal. Every single one of those bring their own unique flavor to a beer, right? So, you know, Stephen and I could make the same beer using the same ingredients, and they'd be radically different just by the ratios or the timing of when we use certain things or didn't.
Catch grandma.
So it's you know, it's a fun business, and that's what I love about it. Is there is such thing as bad beer. You can make a bad beer, and that does happen, but the reality is everybody's just trying to innovate, and you have to be willing to take chances and try something new, or you're just going to squander in obscurity, just, you know, making the same stuff everybody else makes. And
I want to take that.
That's the trend. That's the trend.
I want to take that just a little bit differently. And I'm going to say one of the things that's really cool about this industry that I've enjoyed before we started in it, I knew that it was happening, is, and I'm going to take two words out of First Robotics' core values and philosophies: gracious professionalism and cooperation. The craft brewing industry is very cooperative, and obviously there's competition. There's competition between Preston and I, obviously. I mean, I'm selling beer, he's selling beer. Clearly, my beer is better than him. From his point of view, his beer is better than mine. Or our beers complement each other depending on which styles I have and he doesn't, and which styles he has that I don't. So you have both of those things going on. The other day, he ran out of nitrogen. I have a tank. He can borrow my tank until he gets it. That's no big deal. You'll see the Georgia Craft Brewers Guild actually facilitates this. And also the Brewers Association helps a little bit. But with the Craft Brewers Guild, for instance, somebody will put out an email blast. Hey, I was supposed to get 500 pounds of Pilsner malt and it didn't come in. Does anybody have some? And somebody else will go, oh yeah, sure, come and get mine. You can either pay me for it or replace it. I mean, how many other industries do you see doing things like that?
Yeah.
That's been an incredible trend that I've seen before we got involved in it and since I've been involved in it. I think it's really cool.
Can I ask a question? Go ahead, Rico.
I mean, that's because it is a passionate business. It is artisan. It is people crafting, literally crafting, art. I mean, that's what it is, right? I mean, chemistry.
It's an art and a science.
Right. Yeah. So
there's no doubt there's a science to it, especially for repeatability, measuring, and all those sorts of things. But then there's the art part, just like Preston was saying with cooking and baking.
Yeah, because when do you stop the fermentation? Or when do you heat it? What temperatures you go at? I mean, it's just really something that most people should appreciate.
The great thing that we've seen here, right, is we have 4 breweries all in the Peachtree Corners Norcross area, right? So what is that?
Exactly.
3 miles. I think farthest distance for any one of us is 3 miles.
Yep.
All 4 of us are we've all created a different vibe.
Mm-hmm.
We all have our own way and approach to how we make beer. And so there's enough uniqueness, especially between the 4 of us right now, that we're all doing something different. We're the co-opetition side of things, right? I came out of the hotel industry, and we use that a lot, especially in downtown Atlanta, where we were always, we were competing, but at the same time, we worked together on things too. I mean, Cultivation and I have a collaboration in my tanks right now that we'll be releasing in November, right? So they came here and we actually brewed together for an entire day, and we'll have that collaboration coming out here in late November. We do work together on a lot of things, but we are also kind of competing for the same people, especially, in a limited demand cycle we're in right now, but we're also all doing enough things differently. And we've found our own voices that it's not really direct, right? There are things Cultivation does very well that I don't do. And I can't, just to be honest, with my scale versus compared to their scale, I just can't do it. Likewise, there are styles that we're making that are just a little bit different, and we put a different twist on it than everybody else around town. So, it works harmoniously, and it should be, right? Downtown Asheville has almost as many breweries just in downtown Asheville as the entire Atlanta Metro has. Like, there's like 50 breweries in Atlanta Metro now.
That's right.
There's not quite that many in downtown Asheville, but there's definitely like 20 you could just walk to. They all coexist, and they all coexist because they work together. They all find their own niche in what they want to focus on and what they want to specialize in versus what everybody else is doing. And it starts to create a community and bring people in. And that's what we're trying to do between the 4 of us with the Norcross Peachtree Corners community, is get people to come in from Roswell or Stone Mountain or, Duluth or Swanee or wherever else there may be, beer crowds that are, reasonably drive in. Come spend a day in Peachtree Corners and Norcross and experience all 4 of us.
So do you find this is so different from other businesses? It's almost like a shoe business in a way, where people want to see five stores because they're going to go visit each one of them. That's almost what it's like, isn't it? I mean, you want to be able to know the city has 3 or 4 or 5 places, and you could just bounce around and try everyone's brew. I mean,
I have several customers that come in and say, "You're one of the 4 I'm going to. I'm supporting all 4 of you, and I get a different beer at each place."
And I could say, even expanding, I spent 15 years traveling corporate to meetings, salesman, client meetings. And what was always a staple of it, you'd spend all day in a conference room or meeting rooms working through meeting. And in each one of those, if you fly in on Monday, there's a Monday night, Tuesday night, Wednesday night, possibly Thursday night before everybody flied out on Friday. And I used to admire the staff that would coordinate all of that. People are in hotel rooms, there'd be dinners every night, and there would be pre-dinner, there would be dinner, and there would be post-dinner. And very often in some cities, we'd go to a brewery after, first, and then we'd go dinner somewhere. And then those would go back and do work in their rooms or sleep. And then there'd be a group that would stay a little bit later and go to another. And so we always look for cities and towns that had enough of those kind of places so that you can feature different places. So as the economy comes back and people start coming back to offices and people start doing conferences again, I could see having this group of breweries and both of the two in Petrie Corners as options that'll make it easier for people planning meetings and hosting meetings to not have to think about, do we have to go to one place every night? Nope, you've got options, and everyone ends up winning and being successful in that.
And I think, didn't Preston, when we had our conversation last week, you mentioned that in March, between like March and May or something, around that area, when people were finally looking like they were opening up, coming back, things would be, this was before the variant came, the Delta thing. But you mentioned that it was like you saw a window of what it would look like once we were back to a place where everything was open. And that was a good place, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, it was great. I mean, it was like a 10-week window that we got of this is what life could look like. It's a brewery on Tech Park with even just a hint of normalcy. Like we weren't even back to, there wasn't even really truly normal. We were just closer to normal than we had been since March of 2020. And we just got that little glimpse of it. And then, by the end of June, July, all of it was gone. We were just back to nobody's going out. You could just, I mean, anybody who knows Tech Park, right, that's listening to the podcast, 4:00 at Tech Park, prior to March of 2020 was a nightmare to get in and out of. There's just lines of cars either side, all 4 exits out of Tech Park. All of them were backed up. There was no good way to go. I used to sit on the patio during build out and just watch 45 minutes of traffic of just people trying to get onto Spalding. And you're like, this location's going to rock once we can get to the spring. We just need to get the spring. And now you go sit any day of the week on Tech Park and at 4:00 and you may see 3-4 cars. Right. And so we got a little bit of that in March and April, May. And then by June, it just all started to evaporate again.
So I want to ask another question, if you don't mind. I guess to either one. So maybe Pete first. Supply chain. I know that's an issue with a lot of businesses right now, especially in your business where it's like on demand almost, or like at the moment that you need it. Has supply chain been an issue for you?
It has not been an issue for us in general. I have a specific supplier who has struggled with meeting it. He's messed up with deliveries and some other things. So I don't want to call him out on that. It's not really a supply chain issue. Now there has been, and it's been talked about, an aluminum can shortage. There were several soft drinks that last year this time I could not get in a can. I am pretty sure it's because it was not as popular a soda. Therefore, they were putting it in other packaging, plastic bottles and such like that. I've talked with a can supplier. If I want half a pallet, not a big deal. If I want an entire truckload, that can be a problem from a supply chain point of view because of the aluminum shortage that happened last year when the world stopped going out and they started going to grocery stores and buying their beer in cans, their sodas in cans. Everybody's going to the canned goods instead of the opposite. The draft beer industry really tanked at that time because you couldn't go out to restaurants and such. So what are you going to do with a keg of beer? I mean, that was a big problem. It's not as much of a problem now, but there are other things. I haven't seen it as far as raw materials coming into to our brewery, but more just the general groceries and things like that you hear about.
What's you, Preston?
So I don't know if anyone saw my facial reaction when that question was asked, but I've got the exact opposite impact. It's a cluster. We order like fresh fruit. Like anytime you see Anderby selling anything with fruit in it, it's 100% real fruit. So I have suppliers all over the country that we work with on a regular basis, and it is a nightmare right now trying to get anything. Saturday, we were supposed to be releasing a blood orange cranberry seltzer as part of our big seltzer fest for Saturday. And we ordered the blood orange and the cranberries from Oregon, 3 weeks ago. They were supposed to be delivered no later than Tuesday. And then Tuesday, they'd only made it to Utah. I don't know where they're at right now. I might get them next week. And this is after paying for priority freight to make sure nothing happened and they actually got here. And this isn't a one-off. This happens fairly often. And most of Stephen mentioned earlier, like, hey, somebody's like, oh, I need 500 pounds of Pilsner, or I need 40 pounds of hops. That's all because of supply chain issues and the logistics companies. I don't care who they are, all having problems. And again, there's no need to name them because literally everyone has had a problem.
Right.
It's not even worth naming names because I don't care who the supplier is, and I don't care who the freight company is. None of them are perfect right now, or even anywhere near perfect. To the point where I told one of them yesterday or this morning that charging people for priority service is basically theft because they can't deliver it. So why are you charging people for a priority service when it's worse than your actual economy service? And that's not an over exaggeration. You pay somebody, a freight company, an extra couple $100 to make sure you get something here on time from across the country. And we're small businesses. I mean, we're 2 years in, surviving COVID. We're break-even proposition at best right now. And so you actually do something to spend a couple extra $100 to get something that you really need here on time. And then the freight companies can't deliver it and do it simply because I don't care. I mean, you call anybody right now, you have any sort of problems, nobody takes accountability. They just say, oh, well, it's COVID, right? That's all you hear. I've been waiting on the IRS for 370 days on tax returns from 2019, right? And they go, okay, it's COVID. I think most businesses who were in operation last year, who got there was
PPP. PPP.
No, PPP they were actually pretty efficient on. The SBA did a really good job on that one, but there was something else. The IRS, there was a tax credit, employee retention tax credit.
Yep.
I think everybody's still waiting on their employee retention tax credits, and they said the turnaround time was like 8 weeks. Well, we're at like 16, 20, something like that. So forget 8 weeks. And when you're small businesses, you need this kind of reinjection of capital because that's what's going to help sustain you through the next round, through the current downturn we're still fighting in, right? So you want that, capital, whatever it is, 5,000, who cares? It's going to help you get the next thing. So when you tell a freight company, hey, I'll pay a couple extra $100 just so you don't screw this one up, and then they can't deliver, they don't give you back your $200. They're hardly apologetic. They don't, like, I still don't know when my blood oranges and cranberries are coming, but they definitely won't be here for Saturday. So that ship sailed. So it's hard as a brewery or anybody right now to say, you're going to do X on a certain day and have it ready. And it doesn't, like, again, we plan 3 weeks ahead of time for a buffer, and then they're blowing through the 3 weeks, the buffer, and then it's going to be a week later after that, right? So 5 weeks to get something from Oregon to Atlanta.
I'm noticing something now too that's affecting a lot of business owners and even consumers. As the holiday season approaches, we were talking even in our household, ordering things on Amazon. If you start looking at the delivery dates on really simple, basic things, they're not even promising delivery, things that would be 2 days, 3 days. They're talking up sometime in mid-November to get. So I can imagine what Christmas will look like for kids or for businesses as they scale up for a holiday season and can't get supplies and supply chains. So folks are starting to, I think, start ordering more sooner, which makes it worse because I feel like some of the stuff that happened with toilet paper will start happening on certain commodities and items because everyone's going to order a lot early because they're afraid that it won't get there, and then makes the problem worse. So it is a challenging time for business owners.
And for us, it's hard there's certain things that are just hard to stock up on, right? I mean,
Yep.
a lot of the stuff
Fruits.
you want to use fresh, right? If you're doing stuff with fruit, I mean, it's cash flow, right? I mean, this is again a business focused podcast. Most of us don't have the kind of cash flow where we could absorb in June ordering $20,000 worth of fruit to get us through the next 6 months on everything we think we might want to make, and just have it sit in a warehouse in Atlanta in the summer, right? Like there's the risk of spoilage is greater. There's a lot of risks, bugs, contaminations. And then so you try to do just in time as much as you can, but then because of just supply chain issues, maybe the producers have a bad crop year. I mean, crap, we're about to run into a bad crop year for hops for next year because the weather, the climate in the Pacific Northwest this year was horrible, and it devastated hundreds of acres of hops that will now create shortages for certain varietals for 2022. And so I had to take a lot of my summer cash and stock up on some of my key hops for next year just to make sure we could make, a couple of our core beers for, 6 months.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. Well, I do want to ask a question just coming into the fall season now. Do you have things going on? Why don't you tell folks a little bit about what you got going on and how they can find you, maybe your addresses and locations for folks in the surrounding community or visiting to come and visit both locations. Start with you, Stephen.
Well, we're at 6025 Peachtree Parkway, right here on 141, catty corner from the Marriott. So we're pretty easy to find. We're at kettlerockbrewing.com as our website, and we're on Facebook as Kettle Rock and Instagram as Kettle Rock Brewing. So those are choices for that. And you said this fall.
Any events coming up that you like to share with folks?
Well, we have, again, you'll have to check the website to see when, and if you sign up for email, go to the website, sign up for emails, or follow us on Facebook or Instagram to get the latest as we add the different events and things. We have a wedding rehearsal party tonight that'll be right here at the brewery, and headed to the wedding tomorrow for that.
Good
so
deal.
that's how to find us. We're right here. It's easy to see.
Thanks. Preston, how about you?
Yeah, so we're at 110 Technology Parkway, right next to the Spalding Animal Clinic off of Spalding and Tech Park. So we're also very easy to find. Saturday, the 25th, so I don't know when it's getting released to the public, but 2 days from now is the launch of our Cat Lady Seltzer brand. We'll have fur kids out here, and we'll be benefiting all the seltzer sales will benefit, a portion of the proceeds benefit fur kids. They'll be here, cat adoptions, Cat Lady contest, all sorts of stuff. A lot of cats going around on the brewery Saturday. It'll be fun. We are pet friendly, so dogs, we like dogs too. In fact, we love dogs. End of October, I think it's the 30th, whatever this last Saturday of October is our second birthday party. We'll have 4 stout releases, 6 stout releases, 4 barrel-aged stout variant releases, and then 2 other stouts that will be coming out. All of them are 12.5%, 13%. So very big stouts. It'll be a big stout day here. Live band, couple food trucks. Outside of that, food trucks 5 days a week. So Tuesdays, Thursdays, Fridays, Saturdays, Sundays, we'll have food trucks out here. You can find us at anderbybrewing.com or at Anderby Brewing on Insta, Facebook, and Twitter. Food truck lineups are posted. So who's going to be here, what times they'll be here are all on our social media and our website.
So you reminded me that, as you can see, we have Oktoberfest here, and that's something that's happening. It's not as much a future thing. Mayor Mason was here Saturday as the mayor in Munich would tap the first keg. Mayor Mason was here to pull our first fest beer. So we've certainly got that going on. And like I said, we have live music going on. So all that's happening.
Well, I really want to thank on both Stephen Peet of Kettlerock Brewing, and Preston Smelt of Anderby Brewing, just highlighting some of the great things here in Petrie Corners, this ecosystem of breweries that creating something unique in this area of Metro Atlanta that helps, folks after work can go out, grab a beer, enjoy themselves.
That's Richard. He wants to talk to me
need
about the
events.
Bridge Brewing.
They can do that as well. So I want to thank both of you for joining us and bringing your stories and just sharing with the community how you started and managing your business. And we implore everybody, come out and support local brewery. Go grab a beer when you get a chance.
Yeah, thanks for hosting this. We really appreciate it, both Preston and I and the other breweries in the area. Come have a beer.
Thank you.
It's our pleasure. The Capital State Podcast is here in Petrie Corners to talk to business owners, share about some of the successes and challenges, and just part of that cooperative theme of some of the conversation today. We want all business owners to kind of understand what it's like to be part of this community. I'm Karl Barham with Transworld Business Advisors of Atlanta Peachtree. Our business advisors are available to consult with businesses, whether you're looking to improve through growth and acquisition, whether you're looking to exit the business, we help with business sales. You can schedule a consultation at kbarham@tworld.com. You can email me there or visit our website, www.tworld.com/Atlanta Peachtree. We're here to help the local business community in any way we can. Rico, why don't you tell us a little bit about what you've got coming up?
Sure. So the next issue, as I mentioned before, Peachtree Corners Magazine will be coming out the first week of October. You can visit the website at livinginpeachtreecorners.com. Check out the podcast. We have the news that goes on that website, and follow us on social media. We also do other things. I'm a creative director, social media marketing as well, video production to a degree. So if you're looking for that, check out mightyrockets.com or just look for Rico Figliolini on LinkedIn, because there aren't that many of us. Just spell it right, Figliolini, and we'll be all good. Thank you, guys. This was excellent. I'm going to have to go get a beer after this, I think.
Absolutely. Well, thank
Sounds
you, guys.
great.
And I'll be seeing
Thank you.
both of you soon. I'm coming out to visit. Take care.
Take care.
Okay,
Good.
thanks.